going to learn the first Maimer Vidaita. The Maimer Lekutei this week, there's 2 Maimer in Vidaita. Vidaita Ayom and we'll learn the first Maimer. We're not going to get through the whole Maimer, but Lamer Pruvim Zen was the Maimer that's the Matzalik brings you there. It's a ganz known Maimer, but we'll try to go through the main, the bulk of the Maimer. So it's on, it's on Amud Dab Dalit. Vidait Hayom the pasuk says that you should know Hayom, you should know today, you should take to your heart, and pay attention to it. That Havayu Hu Elikim. The Rebbe is not really going into that in Havayu Hu Elikim so much more. What's that Gasha Vidait Hayom? Mamazem via Shtalta Hine Shlav and Alikvar Nemer, it says just a couple of seconds earlier, Atar Esaladas, that the Eibusher David, the Eibusher showed you were shown, you saw that Havayu Hu Elikim. So Mashin Agazak Dominion, Atar Esal, the Yidden were showed, B'Shas Matan Torah, the Eibusher showed the whole Klal Yisrael, that Hashem Hu Elikim. So what's it Moshe ben Gezak Nachamal, Ma'u Eid Ve'edaita? What is he against saying Ve'edaita? So Parshas, Moshe ben was like the whole Chumash Dvarim. Moshe ben was like the B'Techecho, or being reminding it, so he says, since you were shown about Torah, the fact that Havayu Hu Elikim, there's only one Eibusher, the Mele, you know for sure today there's only one Eibusher, but the Lepoil, it's a Kefil Indian. Since you were shown about Torah, therefore you know that the Eibusher is the only Eibusher. Also, why? What's the Lashon Hayom? When did you didn't have the idea that Havayu Hu Elikim? When did you didn't get to know that the Eibusher is the only Eibusher in the entire universe? That's the simple meaning of the pasuk. That the Eibusher is the only God. There's only one God everywhere. So Yidden got to know that not Hayom. Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking to Yidden after 40 years they were in the Midbar, right before they're going into Eretz Yisrael. This is a month before Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. So that's when he's telling Yidden Vidait Hayom. But l'chora, the idea that Hashem Hu Elikim, that they got by Mamid Har Sinai. The Eibusher then revealed. The Rashi says that the Eibusher opened up all the Rikim, and Yidden clearly saw that there's only one Eibusher, not Hayom, not after 40 years that they realized the Eibusher is the only God. That today, after 40 years of being in the Midbar, now you know that the Eibusher is Hu Elikim. We already knew it from Matan Torah. Now in the Vidaita, which didn't exist, the Shas, there was the Atar Reis. That's the Shai. Yidden had a Re'i and a Lukus Panim upon, and the pasuk says Panim upon Dibar Hashem Yimachem, so they had a direct and clear vision of the Eibusher Kaviyachol. They heard on their own. They heard the Eibusher directly speaking. So Yidden Tained Amru Yesam Nachnu L'Shmei, if we're going to continue having such a relationship with the Eibusher, having such a direct and Panim upon him face to face connection with the Lukus, we won't be able to handle it. We won't be able to handle it, and therefore you didn't ask Moshe Rabbeinu Krav Atoshma. You continue having this open and direct shayches to Lukus, and we're going to mekabel it through you. As you didn't get better, that's what you didn't ask. We can't handle having this type of yachas, this type of kiruv to Lukus. But the Eibusher was masking that they're right. And therefore the Eibusher said, "He tivukol asher deber." You didn't right. That's not this tazikim 11 as we can't live life with having a direct shayches to Lukus. And therefore the Eibusher told them, Leichem er lehem, shuba lechem lo aleichem. The Eibusher told Moshe to tell the Yidden, they go back to your tents, go back to your regular life. Parshas means go back to your regular married life, your regular life. And Moshe Rabbeinu is going to continue being in this world and living a whole different style of life. Moshe Rabbeinu was pirish minish, and Moshe Rabbeinu stayed having a direct and panim shayches to Lukus. So the Rebbe means, so the Eibusher was masking us. Takanish can say that Yidda has to have a different type of yachas to Lukus. So the Hemshech, as that says, mitzvah, now that Motagere, that Yidden can't have a direct and panim shayches to Lukus, so now they have to go back to their tents and live their life. So now Zaysa mitzvah will give you a specific mitzvah. Last is baris they should do when you're living in the land, when you're living your regular life. So I'm going to give you a mitzvah to remember the Eibusher. Then what's this mitzvah the Eibusher is going to give them when Yidden are going to be living in Eretz Yisrael? That's the Parshas Akra. Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad V'Ahavta. She a mitzvah l'shein shenstava achra aseres adibris information. So now the Rebbe goes through the general seder advarim in the parsha. The way it works is in Parshas Vaschanon, Moshe Rabbeinu first reviews with Yidden that was Maimed Har Sinai, and the Eibusher spoke to them directly. Panim dibar Hashem Yimachem. Yidden said that we can't handle such a relationship of having an open and direct Shaykhis to Likkutei. From the gebeten that we have to, you be close to Hashem, Krav Ato Shma. Moshe Rabbeinu should be the one that's going to be, have a panim with Likkutei. But we're going to go, we have to live a regular life. And the Eibush Takem asking, you go into Eretz Yisrael, live a regular life. And when you're going into Eretz Yisrael, I'm giving you a specific mitzvah to do in order for you to stay connected to me, Kaviyah. What's the mitzvah? Mitzvah is Krishma. Shema Yisrael and V'ahav. So last his bodies. Before, as the akdama to the mitzvah of Krishma, the pasuk says, this mitzvah I'm giving you to do when you're in Eretz Yisrael. So the shaila is mitzvah Krishma, the Parshas Shema chayv zagufu. Any mitzvah that there's a chayv on the gavra to do, it doesn't make a difference if you're in Eretz Yisrael, not in Eretz Yisrael. Only mitzvahs that are chayv as karka, a mitzvah that's a chayv on the land, then there's no difference in the chutzlars in Eretz Yisrael. But a mitzvah which is the chayv as gavra, so there's no enough commitment between Eretz Yisrael and chutzlars. So why does the pasuk say that I'm giving you a mitzvah for when you go into Eretz Yisrael, you're going to do a mitzvah of Shema? The chutz chayv zagufi, ben ha'egez ben be'er zim chutzlars. The Alter Rebbe also, in fact, as that shaila also in Tanya. But the Alter Rebbe gives here a different view. So the Alter Rebbe says, Lohavin calls it. First of all, what's the Yisrael of Vidaita over Atar Reis? Second of all, why the mitzvah of Krishna has to do with going into Eretz Yisrael. So the Alter Rebbe gives a deeper touch. What does Eretz Yisrael mean? And what's the teichel of mitzvah Krishma? And what is the mitzvah of Vidaita? Lomer zem bi'er zotis. So the Lohavin calls it. So Chlahaktim bi'er inyan das v'inyan amuna shim shtei mitzvahs. This is the Alter Rebbe. Arrange in the ganze Arichis, but the Alter Rebbe learns here that there's two chiyuvim. There's a chiyuv for a year to believe in the Eibishter, Hamanas Elokus, to believe in Asfrana God. The noch efana mitzvah to wissen und verstehen, that is going to touch what it means, but to have das in Elokus. It's not just to believe in the Eibishter, but to have das in Elokus. The Alter Rebbe is going to explain what this means. But here, the Alter Rebbe says this word that is two mitzvahs. The Samat Tzedek in the Echus goes more by pratis to explain where's the Alter Rebbe say that it's two distinct mitzvahs. But that's the way the Alter Rebbe touches in the Rambam that there's two mitzvahs. One mitzvah is to believe in the Eibishter, and a second mitzvah is Vidaita das, to have a das in the Likkutei, to know the Eibishter, which I'll tell you to explain what it means knowing versus believing in a minute. So two mitzvahs. Kehine eksiv das Elokai Avicha. Da wissen the Eibishter. There's an element b'chinas das v'asagamavish. Das means, with Alter Rebbe attaches here, das means that you grasp it. And when a person could believe in something that's beyond his grip, you can believe in an idea that you don't have any, which is not on your level altogether. Amunah is not just Amunah is that you know that you have a certainty that something exists, even though that thing is beyond you. Even though we're dealing with an idea that's totally not within your realm, but that we're going to speak later, still a person can have a certainty that something exists which is beyond it. That's Amunah. Das is that you know that you know it. That means that the idea that you believe in, the concept that you know, is a concept which is processed in your brain. You have that, you know exactly what you know. That's das. Das is hasaga. Hasaga means that the concept that you know is not you believe in an idea and the concept is removed from you. Is that you know and you have an awareness of this concept. That's what is going to touch up. What this means. What is the word das mean? We'll see in a minute more for this. So einmal steht in Pasuk das Elokai. The Yid has to have a yediyah in Elokus, das. The noch steht doch se ve'aminu ba'avai. So there is an inyan of emunah in Elokus. For inyan sagt er what does emunah mean? How does the world teach the mitzvah of emunah Hashem, to believe in the Eibishter? So the world teaches that emunah means to believe that there's a God. You shouldn't think that the world came into being on its own. You should believe that there is a God that created the universe. So Alter Rebbe says that the word emunah doesn't really pass when they get to that even. To believe that there's an Eibishter, that he's the one that's giving chayis to the world, that created the world, of them is the shaykh is the word emunah. So the world touches emunah means the hamash gesh baruch chayis kulam. Now the Parshas, why does the word call that emunah? Because a person, even if you don't have necessarily the heichachas, the proofs that the Eibishter created the world, you have to believe in it. You have to know that there's a creator to this universe. Whether you understand it, whether you have rayas or not, you have to believe that the Eibishter is creator of the universe. The Alter Rebbe wants to be madgeshir that the fact that there is power behind this whole universe is something that you could feel. It's something that you could be margish, something that you could sense. So if you could sense it and you could feel it, it's not shaykh to say that you believe in it. The idea of belief is that there's something which is beyond your senses, beyond your feelings, something which is beyond your reach, and even though it's beyond your reach, still you have a certainty that it exists. Masha'ik, it's something you could sense, something you could feel. That's not considered. Then there's no idea of belief in it. Same way when you see something, you see something, you don't say you believe in it. If you see it, so it's not an idea of belief. You know, it's a different type of way of knowing that something exists. You have the concept itself. You see it. If you sense something, the idea of emunah is not shy. Not that it's going to touch you. So the Velpesh then is the claim that the Eibush is the one that gives life to the entire universe. Who baris kol hayom and he created the whole world ma'alish. So I'll tell you that tame him. She'ain tzarich lezemun. So the Alter Rebbe, in one place, the Alter Rebbe's Ma'arech, that some Tzaddik also brings that why is it not shaykh the word Emunah is because there's rayis. For the fact that the Eibush created the world, there's basic hechachas for that. Logically, it only makes sense that there's a God, there's a creator that created the universe. There's different rayis al piseichel which prove that it's not shaykh to say that the world came into being on its own. So the reason why it's not called Emunah is because it's a seichel to kemes. You could prove it. But the Alter Rebbe is not going in that track now that you could prove it. The Alter Rebbe wants to bring at a different point. The Alter Rebbe is not going into whether you could prove that there's Eibush or not. The Alter Rebbe here is saying that you could sense that there's a certain power that's giving energy to the world. So the Eibush, which is the one giving vitality to the world, that's a level of Elokus that you could actually sense it. You could feel it. Since you could feel it, it's not shaykh to say that you believe in it. Because something that you feel, you have the concept itself, that's not an idea of Emunah. That's what the Alter Rebbe gesehen hat. The fact that the Eibush is mechayes kulam, the fact that this world has an inner power, an inner energy, which gives it life, which keeps it fresh, zen nirgash. You can just feel it, you can sense it. The Iya means not that you physically see it, but seeing means that you have a direct contact to the idea. The same way when you see something, it's not that you need proofs for it. You have the idea itself, you see the thing itself, there's a direct contact between you and the thing. When you feel something, you sense something, so you sense it. You don't need a motor for that. You don't physically see that there's a certain energy that keeps this world going. There's a certain power that keeps this world, and it synchronizes everything, that keeps the whole world running. But it's as if you see it because you feel it. That a person could have a vision. A vision means not literally seeing, but you can have a direct certainty, a direct connection to Elokus. What's the touch of Psari? From my flesh, I see the Eibush. So the touch is interesting. Behind the Psari, Shikmei Psari. The same way a person knows that that he has a life, you have a nefesh within you. A person knows, even if he doesn't have proofs for it, but a person senses part of your guts that it's not that your body, that flesh in itself doesn't have vitality. Flesh in itself is flesh and blood. A person senses in his gut feeling that there's a nefesh, there's a life force that gives you life. Even though you don't see the nefesh, you don't see the life force, you don't see the source of your feelings, but you know for a fact that there's a nefesh there which that's where all my feelings originate there. That's where seichel comes from and speech comes from. Person knows in his gut feeling there's a nefesh, even though he doesn't see it. So mipsari, the sake, shmei b'psari. B'shvil sherei chayes a guf kiyume. Azevir is that the guf is a level of gezah. Yedei omargish kinafshi. He knows that it's his nefesh. Kinafshi yibay. Shehiyam chayes a guf. A man zeh zicher that he has a nefesh. Varaya after la'achri mei besim shana, there's a body, but the body has no vitality, has no life. So that's a clear thing. A person senses it, that the body in itself, flesh in itself, doesn't have life to it, doesn't have energy to it, doesn't have personality to it, and there's a nefesh there. The same way sorry, I sense that I have a nefesh. A person can have a vision, can send him and he sees that the world is like a big body. In other words, that the reality in itself doesn't have chayis in it, doesn't have life in it. The tree in itself, the physical part of the tree, the matter of the tree, the matter of a leaf, or the matter of any creature is a dead thing, mitzvah. What gives it the vitality, the chayis, and the freshness that is, there's a chayis elikim alubish in it. There's a chayis. And you have this massive body with so many different creatures. Everything works together. You have the leaves grow from this and these things in the air. But the world works as a unified, as an organism, as one big guf. So that even though the person not necessarily senses that this chayes is a likus, doesn't make a difference what name you put it. The same way a person for a fact knows that there's a certain life force within him, whichever word you're going to call it. People might use the word chemicals for it, but that's a reality. There's a life force in you. It's not just isn't just the body. So the fact that you have a nefesh is a life force. That's something that people sense from within their own self. That's a part of your gut feeling. There's the fact that this world has a inner power that gives it life, which this power doesn't stem from the world itself. There's a certain Indian chayis ruchni, a nefesh, which is giving chayis to the world. So mrutas is stand the nefesh, but that's a lukus. That's ein sof baruch hu. That's the nefesh ta'aleim, which is higher than every single creature, and he's the one that's infusing the entire world with energy, with chayis from ein sof. וכן התפילות דברים רוחניק, מלאכים, נשמות, אם כגוף לגבי החי שבשכל, מאין סוף ברוך. המהווה והמחיה יסם, ומקיימם, משכוסו, das besteht in Pasuk, so mare menechem, that him in the egen, or the umi barela. So it says that a person could have could have a vision. You don't have to believe in it. A person could sense it, you could feel it, you could see it. Seeing means that you know something without having any external proofs for it. You just know it from within you. That's the part of the idea. So there's the Torah says here. This idea zumer geshes kilurei. It's clear and it's a reality as if you see it. V'zeh lashon echse. That's not the idea of emunah. Emunah lashon hakodesh. This is emunah means that the idea that you believe in, you don't sense the idea. It's beyond you. And ava v'ken you have a certainty. Mash'egen this in it, the fact that the Eibusher is giving life to the world, that he's the source and he's the one that created the world and he's the one infusing the world with energy, that you could feel, you could sense that there's energy in this world. You don't call it a likkutei, but there is a life force giving life to the entire structure. So that's coming margazin. That's called b'shem das. Das here the Torah touches das means ulashon hakara v'argosh. Das the Torah doesn't mean das as an intellectual theory. Das means something that you sense, something that you know from within. That's the Barton das. So that's an ain't touch. There's a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah that a person should be aware of the fact that you could sense a likkutei. But the Torah b'shayla is saf kol saf. Why is it a mitzvah das Likkutei? Every person senses that there's a chayes. Same way you sense the Evan Nefesh. So by virtue of the fact that you're a part of this world, you sense that there is a chayes elikim belubash in every neighbor. What's the mitzvah shivazeh? So the Torah is like that. The gam das to amakas halev. The tzivah is a mention's charayin trachten in them. Shalesiach daitim izeh. Every person, you can just pay a little attention, you'll be aware that the person feels in his guts that there's something running the universe. There's a power, there's a keich eliki that's running this whole world. And that a person could feel. The shaila is whether you pay attention to it, whether you focus on it, whether you don't ignore it. So the mitzvah is, hamakas alev is charayin trachten in them. Shalesiach daitim izeh. V'yilel is a cardin lefan of time. A person should always have in his mind, alam al-halten in zinen, that there is a balabayis lebirazu. So the fact is, balabayis, you don't need a munah for that. That you could sense. And that's a sense which every human being has. The mitzvah is that you shouldn't disregard it, you shouldn't ignore it, it should always be on your mind. And then the mitzvah. So a special mitzvah, this the Torah says here is a special mitzvah called das Elokeinu Avicha. And was besteht in this besteht in that there is a chayes eliki, that this whole world is dependent on a higher power which is giving life and infusing and directing and running this entire world. A person just thinks about it. A person could be aware of the fact that he has a nefesh. Just give a simple mashal for that. Every person is aware of the fact that he has a nefesh. But many times, a person is not focused on the fact that he has a nefesh. He's not concentrating on the fact that he has a nefesh. And you're not necessarily aware of the centrality of your nefesh. A person could do things which actually ruins the person. Push the example that... or let's say eating too much, and this is just a random example, but eating too much, let's say, that sometimes could be is not healthy for the nefesh. For the person's brain to work, for his keich haseichel to work, for his feeling to work, there's certain things that the body has to deprive itself from in order for his nefesh to be more, I'm not saying ruchnis, but the pashtus, in order for a person's keich nefesh to work, he has to have certain disciplines, so everybody knows that they have a nefesh. The question is, if the nefesh is always is the top priority of their mind. Is the nefesh always, are they focused, are they concentrated on the fact that they have a nefesh? So the Torah says the mitzvah is not just, a mensch basis da get l'chei. But the shaila is, you could be aware that there's an Eibush there, but it's not the central factor in your life. You have other things that you're busy with. So the mitzvah is, das Elokeinu Avicha is that this notion that you have, this sensitivity that a person has, the fact that there's a balabas running the world, that should be a central part of your life. And then the mitzvah of das Elokeinu Avicha, lahamik das, that it should be a factor by you, and that should be the center. Yield is a cardinal ben erev. You should always remember the fact that there is a balabayis lebirazu, and to base your life around this inyan. That's the mitzvah of das Elokeinu Avicha. That's the Ershtazah. So that's das. Is the so once you have das, what's happening to munah? So you sense it as an Eibush. What do you need a munah? That is going to explain. Hine das vargoshazu. That's v'chnasam alikalam. What you're able to sense is the fact that the Eibush is giving chayes to the world, creating the world, giving chayes to the world, the one that's orchestrating this entire system. But lepayo, there's a whole other element of a lakos, which the Eibush is beyond this whole system of the world, of creating a world, of coordinating everything that's going on. That's a limited version of a lakos kaviyachol. That's why the Eibush is mitzamtzim himself kaviyachol to give an isinas magam to avot of his family that Eibush is in zich kaviyachol. The Eibush is beyond this whole system of creation. And that idea, we're not able to sense that. That's beyond any concept we're able to imagine. That's Seir Kalam. And in that, the Yid has to have a munah. The Torah doesn't explain. So that's only at that level of Holocaust, which is invested and involved in this system of reality. Let's get the brackets in. Oh, there's just one line. But then you have a dark Holocaust in this Lashon there. It's called Seir Kalam. The Eibusher surrounds the world. Surround means that it's beyond the Agbalas of this world. He's removed from the Agbalas of this world. The Torah is going to touch up. The dark of Seir Kalam shit. The Nia violation is the Torah always brings this pasuk to bring out as if there's a dark in Holocaust, the etzem of Holocaust, where the whole system of creation richt den ganzen nishtan. And the violation is that the Eibusher Kaviyachol didn't change from the fact that he created the world. That means that this whole system of creating the world doesn't touch him. It has nothing to do with him, Kaviyachol. Doesn't express who he is. So he's not affected by the fact that he created the world. So Ania violation is going to the dark of Seir Kalam, which the Gabidam Madrege is higher than this whole inner of having a shaykhs to a world, to creating a world, to being involved in a world. And that's the dark of them Zakan Atahu Kedim Shnibra Elam. She'eni Begeder Alman Klal. So in the dark of Amal Kalam, that's where the Eibusher has lowered himself down to have a shaykhs to certain content. That's the Eibusher's a chacham. So the Eibusher's chacham, he can't say that the fact that there was a world created and there's a lot of wisdom in creating the world. So you can't say the dark of chachma Atzilis, let's say, the world doesn't affect him altogether. And violation is he's affected. This world expresses him. This world brings him out. This world brings out the greatness of the Eibusher's chacham. But then there's Madrig of Seir Kalam, where the Eibusher is higher than his Islam and spheres, where the Eibusher is Ein Sof. And the Indian of Ein Sof, this world doesn't express Ein Sof altogether. So the Ein Sof, we say that the Eibusher is an violation. You see that this world doesn't have any effect, doesn't change him, doesn't have any effect on him. And the Eibusher stayed the same. Means that this world doesn't bring out the idea of Seir Kalam. He's become not together all the ideas and all the concepts that we have in this world. Nicht in them besteht der Eibusher. Lag das was at yemu lubische bad because malchus chalevada he malchus. Yeah, that is my how the inner of Malach Kalam is hard about. This is every member of the Torah that goes through this cheshbon. We'll see it inside anyway. So because malchus chalevada. He malchus kodelam. Yeah, the Torah says all the time. Malchus is the dogma of dibur. By a man, you say malchus peh. Malchus is dibur. Same way by a person, the whole idea of dibur is the ability to be able to affect someone else. A person could be a full person. You could have all the keres and nevesh aren't in Islam. There's nothing added in the person himself by the fact that he's able to speak. The whole mila of speaking is that someone else is able to be aware of what I'm thinking. It's only a ability to communicate the person's ideas to someone else. But the person himself, there's nothing added to the person with speech. So there's the Lamayla front with the Eibusher Kaviyachol himself is blig vo betachlis. The fact that he created a world and the chshivas that there is to the world, that's only legabe the Nivra, not legabe him himself. Okay, it's not negay deep pratim right now. The Hainep China Ziva Ara, we want to bring out that it's only a Ziva Ara. Midas Malchusi is Baruch, Kamayim Baruch Shenk Malchusi Le'Lavad, Shenk Ved Malchusi V'Le Malchusi Atz. Okay. V'azeh Omer Nazal, Ashel Nivra Elam Hayu Shmei B'Lvad. Them Zog the Gemara, Ashel Nivra Elam Hayu Shmei B'Lvad, Shekam Shmei Midas Malchusi V'Chinas Levadi, Mishkas Midas Shmei Levadi, V'Kedi V'Ziva Shel Shmei Aleres Shmei. It's not negay this pratim. V'Nikru Hu Yizbar, the Eibusher Alein is called the Shem Seir Kalam. Why is he called Seir Kalam? Why is he called that he surrounds the world? So that was like this. He's called Seir because she'ena elam estep sumakim like the vel hot king chshivus is the gaviya. Shechayutze mispashet teich elam es ene kidimin anashama mislabesh es ma'am shteich haguf mispel es mikra haguf umimikra amakim v'azman ker b'chem. Yeah, b'shas the nevesh is mislabesh in the guf. So now when the nevesh gives chayis to the guf, so now there's life in the body. So the life which is in the body is affected by different things which affect the body. Now the life is a physical life. So the same way a physical guf gets affected by cold, by heat. So the person which is mulubish in a guf, person's mood also changes by the weather because the nevesh is mulubish in the guf. So the nevesh is affected by the guf. Masha'ik Seir Kalam is the dark of Lakutei, which is beyond all darim of Elam Hazeh. The mitzias of this world doesn't affect the dark of Seir Kalam. Yeah. I think we'll snitch negay the pratim. Let's. I mean, it is negay, but it's not. Let's just do the hemshach of this member. There's pratim here, which need beer, but lamer best to learn in the hemshach advarim this time. If you go a little bit like 5 lines before the end of this sif, she'eni begeder almin. The Torah says Seir Kalam is eni begeder almin. The eina elam is pelam by shush shini chatz shalom. Kumei mikedem shni b'elam. Ubibchina zu. In this bchina of Ein Sof, what's mirafing this inside is that the experience that we have of Lakot, the Eibusher is melubish involved, get chayes involved, span chachme involved. this nivra, that nivra. That is all what the Eibusher himself is. The Eibusher said the way is beyond Tzimtzum is Ein Sof B'Tachlis, which we have no, and there is no concept, and there's no musig by Nevrayim which is able to have any shaykhis to what a lukus in itself really is. And that darga is called Seir Kolam. And in this Ashrana Eibusher, which is beyond the definition, any definition which we're aware of, that Indian of them is that shaykhis can das vargosh. It's not shaykh to sense it. Because any nitfas b'shum seichel v'asag is not nitfas in any Indian. Any idea that there is by nivra, so the idea of bligvul. Bligvul is also a concept in the world. If it's a concept, it's not Seir Kolam. That's all nichla mali kalam. Mali kalam is the darga v'lakos, which is malubish in musagim that we're able to relate to. So any concept that we have in our mind, in our system, that's all mali kalam. Seir Kolam is that darga v'lakos which is beyond any idea. In a nitfas b'shum seichel v'asag is beyond any concept and any idea. So that in it is not shaykh to have any argosha. Ain't she in front of his brother? And there's a darga which is called Ein Sof. Lahamin b'Hashem shu yisbarach in v'gadol almin u'lefonim kachashecha keirim. That believing that the Eibusher is beyond the whole system of the universe and any concept that a person is able to imagine himself, the Eibusher is far beyond that. Now them, that from Hoben Emunah. And the Alter Rebbe says here that the truth is that Gans Torah Mitzvahs is based around the idea of Seir Kolam. So the main thing is a person living in this world, you have to be aware of the fact that there's a God that created the universe, and he's the one that's in charge of the universe, and that's it. And that you could feel, that you could sense. You need a muna. So the Alter Rebbe says you shouldn't make a mistake and think that the whole Eibusher is connected to this world. You have to be aware of the fact that there's a God beyond the universe. Good, but that's a side thing. So the Alter Rebbe continues here to say that the truth is that the main focus of Yiddishkeit is the Eibusher, which is beyond the whole system of creation. And this part is really every man could tell you the Alter Rebbe read this, but here we'll see the way he says it here. Doctor, Shchon Eretz or the Eyemuna. You have to dwell in the land and to nurture the Emunah. That's what attaches as it. Pirush or the Emunah. What does it mean the A to nurture the Emunah? That's based on Aleph from the man of Tzaber. The A mefarnis shetzarech lefarnis lehamshech mazin lahaglos Emunah shetia kvua b'leibad. This Emunah, which is in Seir Kolam, and even though it's the nature of a human being is gvul. And the Eibusher himself is Tachlis Ein Sof, which is we have no concept in our world that's able to have any shaykhs to this Seir Kolam. But Sfrana Mitzvah is a chiyuv, what's Bashei Daved of the Yid, that this Emunah should also be an Eifin of Argosha. That even the dark of Ein Sof of Seir Kolam should be an Eifin of Das Argosha by Yid. Those are the Rebbe. The Emunah Hayes, that would have passion, the Emunah that should be a kvua, believe Adam Gamkim, Chnesre Eiv, Das Argosha Kilurei. And then Bashei the Ufta of Torah Mitzvah and Anashamas Yisrael, that the dark of Seir Kolam should be. We should be able to sense it. We should be able to live with it. Same way you're able to sense the fact that there's chayish, there's vitality in this universe, where you should be able to sense the madreg of Ein Sof Seir Kolam. And the Alter Rebbe says that's the Aved of Yid Bechlal, and the Shlomo is Kameshiyah lost it. That's going to be the Ufta lost it loving. What's this Mala Aretz Deya? Pirush. So Parshas it means the whole world today. Only not everybody believes in the Eibusher. Not everybody knows that there's an Eibusher. Lost love the ganze Welt wissen, dass da geht okay. Alter Rebbe touched anders. Mala Aretz means Haaretz Yemunah. Haaretz is called the Emunah in Seir Kolam, that's called Aretz. Why is it called Aretz? Shnikar b'shem Eretz shemadriga tachtena she'im b'gilu el Emunah b'vad. Because in Das, you just believe in it. So Emunah is in a sense the lowest way of connecting to an Indian. Emunah is the lowest way of connecting to an Indian. Das var gosh, when a person senses something and feels something, when a person does and feels something is able to that's more of an ashtik connection. But shaking Emunah is the lowest way of connecting to an Indian because you don't have the concept itself altogether. So that's why it's called Eretz. And what's the Mala Eretz there? Pirush Arsi Emunah Shigmushim Eretz. Shemadega Dachin Shemigila Emunah Bavad. Kinot Chulasim B'Seifa and Shein Gidit Chulasim El B'Seifa. A darga which is Tchila, a darga which is Ein Sof Klal. The only way to relate to a darga which is Ein Sof B'Tachlis is dafka through Emunah. Emunah is a lower kayach. You don't the Pashtes is nicht. You don't feel it. You don't experience it. But there's a certainty that it exists. There's a certainty. You know for sure that it exists. That's a lower kayach b'nefesh. You don't have the ruchnis and nefesh involved. You don't have seichel b'asaga. But dafka where dafka tachtena, dafka there where the nefesh doesn't experience the Indian, darkly can merit than the tchila. To have a shaykhus with Ein Sof is that with this kayach of Emunah, even though there is no gilay. Dafka because there's no gilay nefesh. So that's why it's called Aretz. Pchinas Emunah zu ti'imala there. Emunah will be sensitive to this Emunah. Mala Aretz there means that the Emunah is going to be filled with das. Means we're going to sense Seviv Kalam. Shtiv b'chinas hakorev argosho kilu re'evuchu. V'shkosav nigla k'vei davaya v'ro kobasa yarta. So k'vei davaya does not shem havaya Seviv Kalam. And the ufta of us is going to be that there's going to be a re'iyah. We're going to sense the element of Ein Sof Tachlis of Elikus. Now, unless it's going to happen, loss of love. The in order to make it this it shouldn't just be some removed kayach by a person that he believes that the Seviv Kalam and he lives with Malik Kalam. What he senses is Malik Kalam. And the Seviv Kalam is just somewhere in the back of his mind, he's certain that the Eibusher is beyond the definition of creation. The Aveda V'Yidis U'Teira Mitzvahs is to be magdol the Amunah. That has to do with Zman is to make the Amunah grow. Are the Teira Mitzvahs. Shaleim Nemer Nasa Adam Es Almenu Kedusena of them of Mitzvah state Nasa Adam Es Almenu Kedusena. So a person was created in the image of Hashem. So L'chor Hashem has no image. So you see from the pasuk that he does have an image. Now Torah attaches here that Nasa Adam Es Almenu Kedusena. Some places in Chassidus it says that Almenu Kedusena goes on Malik Kalam. The way the Eibush has mitzamtzim himself in his spirit. Here the Torah attaches Almenu Kedusena goes on Teira Mitzvahs, and the Teira Mitzvahs is the image of Ein Sof. Through Torah mitzvahs, we accomplish that Ein Sof should be in a eifin of. We're able to sense and live in a mortgage to get eifin with Ein Sof. So Nas Adam Samenik the same is that the Eibusher made a yid. Adam is a yid. And it's gemacht geworden, but Samenik the same, which is Ramach mitzvahs. Heim Ramach geworden, the Magab b'chinas Adam Adam le'elyin. Shehem hein Ramach hamshachas b'nasev v'cholam. Means Adam. That's the famous shlah that the shlah says Adam. There's a one type of Adam is that Lashon Adam. That's the Parshas. The reason why the person is called Adam is because he was made Afra Mina Adam. So that shows that the word Adam goes on because he's a lower level. There's Gemacht Gevarn from the earth. But the Shalah always brings that Adam is Adam Lashon Adam Ela'eli, that you're similar to higher than Sir Adam. We're Deim Ela'eli. So that says Adam Adam Ela'eli goes on Seviv Kalam. Yudei B'Sher is Hecher. He's alien. He's removed from the Agbalis of reality. And Adam is Teira Mitzvahs, which is through Teira Mitzvahs that's Ramach HaMshachar, which connects it to Seviv Kalam. That a klal, now in order to accomplish that, Seviv Kalam should be an eifin of re'iyah. Lasid love, there's a whole system. So the klal is through Teira Mitzvahs. What's the general category? There's three general hagdaras. What Teira Mitzvahs really is comprised of? What's the three categories of Teira Mitzvahs? That a klal nechlok in haramach mitzvahs the gimel kav. That's yamin v'smeil v'emtza. V'hem Teira v'edek mos chasad. So there's three general kavim. Was durch them can magdal sein the emunah in Seviv Kalam, to bring a person closer to the notion that the Eibusher is Ein Sof Tachlis. You should be able to live with it. It should have an effect on him, not just as some removed emunah. But the fact that the Eibusher is Blik Vol B'Tachlis, the fact that the Eibusher is Ein Sof and Ein Begeder Alman, that should be something which is more, should have more of an effect on a person, to be magdal the emunah. So Torah is the Eibusher's name, Kabiyah. So when a Yid learns Torah, he's Mamshech Ein Sof. Torah originates in Ein Sof himself, and it's finished like Kadosh Baruch Hu. When a Yid learns Torah, he's Mamshech the Eibusher himself. Shmezer like Kadosh Baruch Hu, Keda B'Torah K'Meshik Keda B'Shem. The Torah says in Tanya that when a person learns al derech like a child calls and says Abba, he says Father. So when a person, there's different ways to relate to a person. A person could relate to someone's qualities, relate to his seichel, relate to his midas. Then when a person says Father, Father is how a person relates to the etzem. When a child calls the Father and says Abba, that he's relating to the pnimius of the Father, to the etzem Ab. So Al Torah says, when a Yid learns Torah, what's the pshat Torah? Shmezer Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu. When a Yid learns Torah, he's calling out, he's relating to the Eibusher's pnimius, to the Eibusher's Ein Sof. So Al Torah is being mamshech the pnimius of Elokus, Meshukreide B'Shem, like calling a person by his name, which then the person himself turns to you. So there's a Torah as a way that the Eibusher himself should turn to you. That's the Hamshach of Seviv Kalam. So the Torah is like this. The first thing is, in order for the Darga of Seviv to be something which is a person to be able to relate to, that's no mile. A mensch kenes halin shtufta. We're gvul. But a Yid learns Torah, so he's calling the Eibusher to turn to him, Kaviyah. You're created b'shmesh l'kadosh baruch hu. The fact that Torah kula shmesh l'kadosh baruch hu, that's a Ramban. But the Torah teaches it that it means that through Torah we're calling the Eibusher by his name, and the effect is that he turns to us. That's Torah. That's one thing. Then ugmar zut tzedakah. What's tzedakah? Lahachi yisruach shvadim. That a person pashat leptuf shafal, a person which is you're helping someone else, you're elevating his spirit. And we're all little shvelim. Like you have someone that he has the means, and the oni felt them or held garnish, and you go and you give him, you give tzedakah to him, you help him, you do a favor for him. The yid helps out someone which is on a lower level than him. Even of tzedakah, that's made by Lamaila also. I'm shach of Seva Kalamim, which is B'chinas Yirida B'Hashpala. Lahachis Ruach Shpala. The Eibusher also graces us with giving us something which is beyond our reach, which we're considering an Eimlik of, the Imam Seva Kalam. And then there's Avedit to Korbanis. Korbanis is B'chinas Rishpe Eish Lamata Likol Beishamal. It's not good that a person learns Torah, and a person learns tzedakah. That's Mamsha. That the Eibusher should want to turn to you and grace you with his pnimius. But I mentioned after you have to be in the mode of accepting the Eibusher's insight. That's through being ma'arid Abbas Hashem. That's Aveda. That Torah is being calling the Eibusher by his name. Tzedakah is that you're giving the Eibusher an interest to grace you with his presence. So a person could call his father by his name. His father's going to turn to him, but he's not interested in speaking to him at that moment. Call a person, he turns to you because you called him, but he's not really interested in giving himself over to you. Through tzedakah, so now that you gave tzedakah, it's ma'arid that the Eibusher is interested in being mashpiyah to you. Because midah connected midah. If you are mashpiyah tashafel, the Eibusher is ma'arid by him also that he should have also an interest and a desire to be graceful to you. But then, in order for you to be a keli to the samshachal mamayla, you have to have a mention of something to the certain. That's through being ma'arid by yourself. Abbas Hashem. That's the kav of Aveda Korbanos. Chimit tefillah shneged the Korbanos. Tiknu baruch Hashem. That's being ma'arid Abbas Hashem. We'll see the Torah says bekitzer how you ma'arid Abbas Hashem in davening. But Emrei baruch Shasayid zog baruch Hashem hayayim. Which what is this baruch Hashem hayayim means? The hainu the maimer echad. Ein the Eibusher can say ein vart. The ganze Torah is one sentence. We're saying how the whole Kodesh of the Zimri is that the Eibush to create the world was an external part of the Lukas. The Eibush himself is beyond it. But by Yarnam Kenelam, we live in Israel, even though the Eibush himself is beyond the world, but for a Yid to connect, we are Am Kreve. Like the Eibush is a B'Sharp Slukim Shemim Nimshach Rishpe Eish Salat Salev. That's Meredek Abbas Hashem. But the Zek Hamayim upon him upon him, Mamshech Lamata B'Chinas Kolam and Shtiya Munazu Kvo Tkua B'Leiv B'Nefesh. So upon him, thus is the three kavim which durch them took me off that in Sof Sevik Shibnim Shech Lamata. But then the Alter Mamshech Hazeh says like this. This is Alter Taish the Psukim. This is a famous Taish that Samatzadik and a lot of Amarim that Chesach also brings this Taish. Zok Hazeh. The Zeo that the Pasuk says in the Eschana V'Zeisam Mitzvah that the Eibush says Mitzvah's Krishma Las is Ba'aretz. To do in the land, the Eibush calls Eretz Yisrael Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. So the Alter already touches before Eretz means Amunah. We're going to see soon the Fiza Torah is going to explain why Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. Who cares about the milk and honey? What's this basic yichus that it's a land of milk and honey? Dr. Hini in Parshas Ma Yisraelu Shavaya Sev Kolaman Shu Lekenu Shanach Maminim Bay B'Chinas Amunah Levada Yi B'Chinas Echad B'Chinas Gili B'Shiva Rekim Varis. The whole Nekud of Krishma is that Havaya should be Nimshach in Echad. Havaya Lekenu, Havaya is Sev Kolam, and it's a Lekenu. We believe in it, but the Kavanah is that Havaya should Nimshach in Echad. Echad is the world. Zayin Rekim V'Eretz, and the Dalit is Dalit Ruch Hashemayim, and the Kavanah is the Mamshech Hamshachas Das Elyon the Mamshech Havaya in Eretz. What's Vilman? That the Izbitl v'Yichud Amiti, that the person living down here should have a true. He should sense. What does it mean? You're sensing Havaya B'Zman Hazeh. It's not that you're sensing Ein Sof. But the fact that the Eibush is Ein Sof should have an effect on you, should have an impression on you. Believing in something doesn't make that the thing has an effect on you. You believe in it, that stays removed. Here, the kavanah of Krishma is that the fact that the Eibush is Ein Sof should have an effect on you. In what sense? A deep bittul. That a person should feel that his life is only valuable because he's able to do what the Eibush wants. But life without doing what the Eibush wants has no value altogether. Which that bittul cannot come as a malakam. It's an ultimate bittul. The yichud amiti b'chinas yichud de'ilah. Bittul Metzias now. It's not the Malakalamas. At the end of the day, your Metzias has some worth. Even without a Lukus, your Metzias has some worth. Mitzad that Kara the Eibush Ein Sof Klal, so Veldas Bein Arich Lukus. Mitzad that Indian is Bittul Metzias. On the Eibush, the life has no value altogether. And the whole Metzias of life is they're able to fulfill and to do what the Eibush wants. That's Bittul V'Yichud Amit. And that's the Kavanah of Krishna. The Nas of the Nimshach Chinazua, the Amshachas HaMitzvahs. The B'chinas Eretz. Durch them is Mizmamshach zu Emunah. Tut men Torah mitzvahs, mit them tut men ov, that the emunah starts growing. B'chinas emunah zu. Now, through Torah mitzvah, the kavanah is that the emunah in Sev Kalaman should be an eifin of Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. So you can have the emunah the way is in the way it's a dry land, not full of milk and honey. Through being mamshech the emunah and the pnimi is it should have an effect on you, and the effect is this. After speaking bisman azesto, the effect is that the emunah should grow in the sense that there should be milk and honey. Let's make milk and honey. Cholav b'chinas hagdalas hamitzvah. Like milk is megadol the vlad. the Vlad's mitzias grows through milk. Al derech zeh, the emunah has to bring in a godless in the person's keches pnimi. Person has avos Hashem. Person, if your whole awareness of the Eibusher is the fact that he created the world, that's where Yakar Lakus is. So then, a Yid's love to the Eibusher is going to be a limited love. The idea of a Lakus is a limited concept. The Eibusher created the world. You have an amazing life, so you love the Eibusher because he gave you this beautiful life. But there's a certain limit, there's a certain measure of how much good you have, and therefore how much love you can have towards the Eibusher. And through a mitzvah, you're able to connect with him yourself. So then the Ava is an unlimited Ava. So the Emunah macht a godless in the Ava. So Tzaddik adds, like, the Torah means that God, Cholav is that your Ava grows out of proportion. That's Cholav. That's Eretz Cholav. The Emunah and Seir Kolaman has to make an effect on a person to have a much stronger Ava Tolokos. Because when a person has an awareness of what the Eibusher is really all about, that is Tachlis Ein Sof. So the fact that we're able to do a mitzvah, we're connecting with a much deeper target, which is the of Blig Vul, that has to be made a person with a higher level of Ava Legam. That's Cholav. What's it Vash? Vash is Mesikus, Pchinas Mesikus, V'Tainu. Because of us, the Sanag Alavai. Behind him, Pchinas Seir Kolam. Alter says the Indian of Tainug in Alukus. Tainug is that not Tainug. Alter means a very Tainug. A person there's enjoying something, or there is that you feel that you got to the ultimate. Here you got to the true pleasure. A person can have many pleasures. You enjoy it. A person can have a coffee is pleasures, but he's not ready to debate that his whole life should be the ultimate of his life is not drinking a coffee. It's an enjoyable thing, but that's not. Time is that a person feels that here's where it's at. Here I could beer leilam bud. This is the climax that I'm able to live upon. So us the Sanag Alavai is a person that has that a lakus nishtag gresser for that. This is the ultimate type. This is time. So that means that Seir Kolam Chnesegel Anakash is benek and evaluation. That's mentioned Charaimtrach. Ani avaya leishonis. Eibusher himself is the hecher from the Atokedesh Nebed. But I the ganze world is only gvul. The im calls there agan that the nivra mitzadatzim is better rechter lakus. The im calls there in the vayorim kere la'amay levnei Yisrael am krevi mamish. The Eibusher connected us to him himself, and he made us close to him. Am krevi. He made us close to him himself. Mamish. That means we're literally close to lakus himself. That's the emes of time. The time that he has a shaykhs in the Eibusher himself. That's the ultimate time that a person is able to have. Oh, the famous Tash, the Tzaddik b'Manasseh Yichye. The Tash is the Shlomo Kaliner Getay, Tzaddik b'Manasseh Yichaya, Atik Yichaya, that the Tzaddik lives with it, and through a Yid believing in the Tzaddik, so that is Ma'ala Yid. The Tash is here, Tzaddik b'Manasseh Yichaya means that through such a mamshach the emunah in pnimius can sich upleben. That is like this. Tzaddik b'Manasseh Yichaya, Melashon Tainug, Yichya means it's not. There's a person could live a basic life, bread and water, or meleptzachot means that you're it's different than the other. We'll see the other is. Melashon Tainug. Yichan Melashon Tainug. I mentioned leptzachot metef. It's something you feel like you got. Now your life is worth living. It's not just you're existing. Now you're thriving at something. That's Yichaya. With emunah, with the fact that you're mamshach the emunah primis, you could thrive with it now. You can sich upleben with that. That's Yichaya. Melashon Tainug b'koach nefesh. Now you're able to thrive with something. The Taj Be'er Nefashis Shabbos v'Chasrein. What do we say in the Nusach in Be'er Nefashis? The Nusach of the Baruch is Be'er Nefashis. The Eibusher created many Nefashis, v'Chasreinam, and the things that without them we would be missing. That's Chasreinam. He created everything that without having these things we would be missing. We wouldn't be able to function. That's the mashal water. Without water, we won't be able to function. The person won't be able to survive. That's Chasreinam. Then we also thank the Eibusher Kol Masha Barasa Lahachi is our Nefesh Kol Chai. We also thank the Eibusher for whatever he created. So for tainik, for geshmak, that's lahachis ben, not for the sake of necessity in order to just to survive and to exist, but something to give us pleasure and geshmak. We should be able to enjoy. So that's yichai. Yichai doesn't mean just to be alive. Yichai means to have a pleasure with it, to have a pleasure in life. Yichai in life, an ultimate life. The Eibusher created things that without them we should be missing. We wouldn't be able to exist. I'll take water, for example. Then there is lahachis. The Eibusher created things which are just for the sake of pleasure, to enjoy. That gives us a whole new element in life. Kuach nefesh. Kuach nefesh is to open up our nefesh. We should be able to thrive with something. The kach, the emunah, and seir kolam. is made by a person. A person is aware of the fact that Eibishter is Ein Sof. The Yachnim said that he's Ein Sof. Hat uns aufgegeben. Da bescheichst du hin, bekach, yichyi, b'manasse, lahashiv es nafshe, yeshem kol tanug. Person is going to uplift. Will have a whole new freshness and chayas and time in life. Mitzad this Indian that he's aware of the fact that a mitzvah connects him to the Eibishter himself. That's the aggressive from all the tanugim as kanzai. Because there's nothing for me in the heaven. Whatever is with you, I don't want. I only want you yourself. Because the Yid has a shayach the Eibishter himself. So I go upon him. This Tal Trev explains there is das is hargasha that the person is able to sense Elokus. That's only about that. So you're able to sense the vitality, the chayes Elokim, which is melubash and vel. There's trees are growing. There's chayes ba'elam, and there's an Eibishter behind all that. But the idea of Elokus that you have from what you're able to sense within the world itself, that's a limited version of Elokus. That's the way the Eibishter is in Slavish, in Sfiris, in Midas. And then you have Seichel, and the Eibishter is Ein Sof, Blik Vobetachlis, which that's beyond any idea and any concept which exists by a person. And that the person is able to, that we know about the Derech Emunah, Megleben in that. And the Aveda is, that's the ultimate tag is going to be lost, the Emunah is there, that the Emunah is going to be an Eifan of our Gosh. So that Meir is an Ein Sof. The Aveda is man is through Torah mitzvahs to make the Emunah more, to have more, that this Emunah and Seichel should have an effect on a person. The Rebbe is mazber that Bechla through Torah mitzvahs, which is 3 kaplen. Torah is calling the Eibishter by his name, which makes him turn to us. It's Mamshech himself. Then there's the Aved of Gemach that we should want to be interested in us through giving tzedakah on. And then there is the Avos Hashem that we need in order to be a keli for that. And then the Alter explains what's the effect when there's a certain hargasha of Sevik Olam. You believe in it, but what's the effect? The effect is that the first of all is in the bittul b'mtzias. Besides the Malek Kalam, there's no ultimate bittul, because the Malek Kalam is the chayes which is invested within the world itself. So there's value to the world. Now, taking what's Sevik Olam, and there is no value to anything besides the Eibishter himself. There's bittul b'mtzias. Yichud amiti, like I said before. Zweite Sache sagt that there's a whole different level of Ava. When you have that card of Ein Sof, the Ava is a higher Ava. And Al Derech Zeh, the Tainug is a higher Tainug. That's what Imam Shech saying that this is all the way we could accomplish them when it could have an effect on Sultan Zeh. The last level is going to be the ultimate gili of Ein Sof. That's Grad Geschmack, also the Hemshech HaMaimer. But this is, you can't say Alena Kuktan. There's Geschmack in Yonim. But that's, the Alter is finished. Till Seif Dalet, he finished explaining that's meaning of Das and Emunah and the Aveda Vayid and the purpose of the Imam Shech. That the ultimate goal is Imam Shech Emunah in the Ein Sof and Primus. Now, the Hemshech HaMaimer explains why can't the Ein Sof be Meir B'zman Hazeh, and there's other Geshmak in there, but we finish a certain part of the Maimer now. Okay? The rest of the nice. Today's also the Yosef, the Arizal. Yeah. Okay, let's say that.